Welcome back to my channel. In this video I'll be finishing the painting that I started on my previous one. So if you haven't seen it, maybe now it's a good time to go and watch it. There I basically explain the motivation behind starting this particular painting, which I did in quarantine, and today we'll be finishing it off. In this video I'll also be talking about how I gather ideas for painting and basically, the start of that creative process. We can start with this painting. This painting in particular was inspired by me being at the beach, which, if you've seen my previous video, you already know I did very recently. When I start a new painting, I always approach it with an idea in mind, a concept, let's say, something that you can actually describe in a few words. Obviously it helps when the concepts or themes I'm working on are familiar to me and things that I know personally and intimately. For this painting, for instance, my concept is the beach. I've done a few paintings about intimacy, for example. I've done recently a painting that is a self-portrait. So the concepts can vary. Going to the beach is something that I also have done since I was a very small baby. I mean, in my first year, I spent my summer at the beach, and ever since, every single summer has had the same kind of activity. My grandparents watch my videos. After painting some of the whiter areas of this canvas, now, I can look at it clearly and see where the design has some flaws and where proportions are not being met. So it's time for certain adjustments, and I'm going to just sketch them quickly with a pencil. I think with the face, actually, things are going pretty well. It's more a question of, making sure that the shadows will go to the right places, which they should. To be honest, the contrast that I experienced last week after going from being at the beach in the sunny coast of Alentejo in Portugal to being confined to the four walls of my tiny bedroom apartment in London was enough fuel for me to get started. I miss the beach, I miss the ocean constantly. I have a lot of dreams about the sea, the ocean, the waves. I dream about seeing it, I dream of being in it all the time, so it's something that is constantly on my mind, although I don't really live in a place where, I can see the ocean every day. I used to for most of my life in Lisbon. Right now it's a different story, and especially during the past year, with quarantine, with me being in London for 6 months, 7 months straight, which is quite unusual. The sea, the ocean has really been a very strong presence and a very strong absence, actually. Going back to the creative process, how can you or anyone come up with art concepts or painting ideas? To be honest, I think you kind of have to be looking for it. So after quite a long time of doing art, and especially after going through art school, I feel like I look at things with a kind of artistic lens. So I tend to just look at things and think, can I actually make a picture out of that? I've just come back from having the vaccine, and just word of advice, if you haven't had the vaccine yet, I actually went exactly like this, and it was a nightmare to roll the sleeves up and get the shot. So make sure you dress for it, and that means no tight long sleeves. Again, going back to how do I usually manage to start a painting, it really helps to actually register the things that catch your attention every day. I'm always registering things that inspire me, usually pictures, but from time to time also some words, phrases, movies, other artists' work. And these things will easily make me take notice. I don't really feel like I'm working, but my artistic eye is always switched on. Photography helps a lot as well, and I will always be snapping pictures of everything, especially around London, in nature, any walks that I do, sometimes with friends as well and family, which might make people somewhat uncomfortable. But you know, as soon as I see something that I think is unique or interesting from a, you know, color perspective or contrast or composition, I snap it. And I also draw from life, and this is something that I've started doing in art school when we kept art journals and we were actually evaluated on those. So we had to kind of go through our days and notice things and draw them down. My design teachers and painting teachers used to actually look at those and grade them. And what that did is it taught me really to, you know, grab inspiration from anything. As an artist, you're not always, you know, in the zone. And if you have like a backlog of drawings and random things that you can actually use as inspiration, then that is invaluable, really. Even in the periods of my life when I was most busy with work, for example, I tended to quickly sketch, sometimes in the tube or during my commute to the office. I don't usually start a canvas with a sketch though, although of course sometimes I take advantage of a sketch that I've done and liked to make it into a canvas work. But for example, this current painting I'm doing was directly sketched on the canvas, so I didn't actually have a previous sketch that I've done somewhere, like a sketch study that I've done somewhere else and then transferred to the canvas. In this example, I actually started my sketch on it. I also use selfies all the time to kind of give me reference photos for paintings, and also to see the kinds of poses that are viable and which ones only work in my mind. Some of the things I think about are not really allowed by the laws of physics and human biology. In terms of color, which is when painting gets most interesting, I pretty much choose it as I go, and I care about how the picture results on the canvas, way more than about whether this color is realistic or not. I'm not a fan of hyperrealism, it just doesn't really appeal to me that much. I love photography, for example, but above all, I love creating images that are my own vision of the world around me and of the concepts that I'm working on. I don't really want to be bogged down into painting a particular thing and its exact characteristics. It's about me and what I'm making, it's not about the object that I'm using. I thought I would explain also this painting in more depth and break down the elements that kind of compose it. There's a sense of claustrophobic anxiety when it comes to entering yet another quarantine, especially after being for days in the wide open space of the beach, where warmth comes with freedom. But thinking of the beach, the freedom that I feel when I'm there is also coupled with a certain kind of embarrassment, to be honest, and these are very contrasting feelings and ideas. But I think it won't be foreign to most people, this idea of freedom mixed with a certain shyness. And after all, the beach is always an environment where we are all actually very exposed, literally. And so I thought the idea of drawing a pose that focused on a body, actually the female body, in a composition that actually cuts the figure top and bottom. So it's not a classical composition at all, but kind of one that can highlight this idea of how intrusive and intimate the beach actually is at the same time. That kind of contrast between a sense of freedom and actually pride in our own body and showing it, but also a certain shyness and vulnerability is kind of what I was trying to capture. Here is the final piece. The only thing that's missing is signing it. If you did watch this far and you liked the video, make sure that you click the like button, that you subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next one.